Okay, welcome everyone to this next video about spirit. So we have presently spoken about what spirit is and given some exercises about how to commune with spirit. The one thing I would like us all to remember, to quickly commune with, is that spirit is real. No one is going to doubt that I have a body, that I've got hands. It's clear to us. In the same way that you have hands, that you have a heart, you have a brain, you have spirit. Not only this, connecting with spirit and literally being with spirit and knowing it is far, far easier than anyone would believe. This is where people trip up. They create an idea of spirit as being something very vague and ephemeral. Yes, spirit is nothing, in the sense that spirit is beyond delimitation. It is beyond words. Yes, it is invisible, mysterious. But that doesn't mean that it's vague and unknowable. It is very knowable. Spirit is the ground of your consciousness. So I want us to remember that. Remember the exercise we did. That you can just now, in 5 seconds, close your eyes, close your senses, breathe and become aware of your being. Inhabit your being, allow your breath to flow into your body. Feel the thoughts flowing in your mind. Abstract. Close the doors of your eyes and your ears. Observe your mind and your consciousness. And notice that your mind is like a flame, which is always burning and flickering and giving forth new images and ideas in every second. But every flame which burns must burn upon some oil. The mind is burning upon something. Where does the mind come from? Don't try to look at it, because you'll just be looking at the mind. But just be aware that your mind, your consciousness, it's flowing forth from somewhere. And then just breathe in and try to suck yourself back into the hole. You don't have to do it all the way, but can you feel it? You pull yourself, and as you can feel your mind being pulled down toward the point. And do you feel this? It's literally contracting in. You become aware that there's a point of convergence. When I inhale, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually, I can feel myself being sucked back into a black hole. I can never see that black hole, but I know it's there because of the effect. Because I can feel thing in its gravitational pull, in its orbit, I know that it is there. That black hole at the center of yourself, that is spirit. And spirit, that thing, that experience, is the engine of the work. And I want to speak about how to crank this engine, how to burn this engine and generate energy and output and work. Because if you can master this engine, this eternal fire, you will literally have access to infinite energy at your fingertips. And you can do anything with this energy. The entire work and all works will simply be generated by simply the work of the Spirit. Okay, now let us begin. The story begins with systems. In a previous video that Seb and I made together, Seb asked me the question, what does it mean to be a mathematician? And you might think, well, okay, what does mathematics have to do with this? Well, no, no, no. Mathematics is very important. To be spiritual, you have to be a spiritual mathematician. Because mathematics is all about understanding the principles which govern a system. And all of reality is a system. Your body is a system. Your mind is a system. The universe is a system. There are systems inside of systems. There are systems of systems. If you want to do this work really, if you want to do anything, you need to understand systems. You need to learn systems level thinking. This is what separates tier 2 from tier 1 consciousness. This is what separates higher consciousness from lower consciousness. It's what separates, a consumeristic, mechanical, capitalistic system from a real system, a human conscious system, a dead machine to life, a living body. So you have to learn. This entire work is going to begin with real, deep learning. You need to learn the mathematics of spirit and how reality actually works. Because there are rules to reality. It is not arbitrary. If you want to live in the world and actually see outcome, actually change your life, you need to understand how life works. You have to learn how does the world work. Well, first learn that there are systems, and in fact everything is a system, that systems are foundational. Systems have foundations. There's a beginning point. There's a first principle upon which the entire system is based. You have to learn that systems have a purpose. A fancy word for that is teleology, telos. Systems have an input and they have an output. They're not just there for nothing. Right, huge fallacy. There's no purpose to life. Blind evolution created the human body. We're here for nothing more than to eat, to drink, to procreate, to pass on our genes. Huge mistake. Huge, huge mistake, which will absolutely cripple your spiritual work. Every single thing has a purpose. The system does not exist just to reproduce itself. The system has something it exists for. Systems are living things. Huge mistake. You look at the world, you think it is dead. Planets are alive. The solar system is alive. The entire Earth is alive. Is a snail alive? Right? We're all going to say a snail. You look at a snail is alive according to science. If a snail is alive, then how can the Earth not be alive? How can a star not be alive? A star is far more complex than a snail, if complexity gives rise to life, supposedly. Look, think, really think, and don't just take ideas as they are taught to you. Think. The entire world is an organic living thing. It is cybernetic, it is self-referential. It's living. Systems are holistic, they are self-contained, they are total, they're independent. They contain all the parts, and in fact, every system is in relation with every other system. And of course, a system is mechanical. Now, another fallacy. Systems are mechanics, like Newtonian mechanics, and you think the entire world is a clockwork. Fallacy. Just because it is mechanical does not mean that it is mechanics, right? Uh, I can be poetical does not mean that this is poetry. I can be philosophical does not mean that it is philosophy. So yes, systems are mechanical, but don't reduce them to mechanics. But this is a very brief crash course into systems level thinking. We'll speak more about this, much, much more. But let's become aware that the world consists of systems, that systems have these properties. Okay, but still, why do I need to know this? Well, to really have effective work, which actually works, you need to work upon the system. You can never work against it. And this is where almost everyone fails. They did not begin with learning, right? Watching a self-help seminar or a video about how to become enlightened, mistake. You're trying to jump to outcomes. Okay, let's say you're not doing that, and you watch a video which tells you, be patient. Do the hard grind for the next 10 years and then wait for an outcome. So you say, okay, I'm not going to chase the outcome. I'm going to chase the work, right? I'm going to chase just going to the gym for its own sake. Grinding, investing money, doing self-development, making 1% improvements, Kaizen. And you think this is good, right? It sounds awesome. Mistake. You might think, how is this a mistake? It's a mistake. Why? Because you're still chasing work. Doesn't matter. Patience does not matter if it's wrong, right? You can burn yourself and be patient. That doesn't stop it being a stupid thing to do. It's not about chasing the work or the outcome. You have to learn the system. You have to learn. Real patience is not even doing the work, but learning first. And to do this, you have to lose ego, because no one wants to learn. No one wants to be told what to do. We hate that. But that's where the work must begin. Lose ego, lose self, lose all idea and intake, and understand how the world works, which requires us to observe with no judgment. Thus, step one is learning. Before we do, we must learn and understand. Because that's another trap. To learn without understanding. To watch hundreds or thousands of hours of videos, to read hundreds of books, means nothing if you have not understood. If you do this, you truly understand reality, which takes time, takes a lot of time, but it is worth it. You will realize that these systems, they have turning points. There's a heart, there's a central cog. What you need to then do is center yourself at the turning point. You have to find the focal point, the fulcrum. You have to find that pivot about which the system turns. Once you find the center, you leverage, right? Leverage means what? Well, Archimedes, ancient philosopher and mathematician, came up with the idea of a lever. And he realized a very simple but foundational fact. When you have a lever, the further away you are from the pivot of the lever, the more force it exerts, the greater the torque. Hence, if you want to lift something very, very heavy, just make a very big lever, put it at the end, and give yourself a huge room from the pivot so that you can translate a small input into a huge output. Hence he said, give me a lever long enough and I can lift the moon, which is true. It is physically true. And not only is it physically true, it is metaphysically true. This is about leveraging the fundamental principles of reality. Archimedes understood how the physical world works. That gave rise ultimately to the idea of the steam engine, to the industrial revolution, to everything we have now, to ChatGPT and rockets and all of these things. This entire modern world came about just because we understood how the world works. As you can do this for the physical world, you can do this for the metaphysical world. If you understand the metaphysical levers, fulcrum points. You can leverage work to huge outcomes. This means that the greatest things imaginable you can do. How? Not by putting in more work. You are limited by how much work you can do. It is about leveraging, positioning, learning the center, positioning yourself correctly. That is all. And you can apply the smallest, minuscule work, but you will have that greatest effect. Hence, don't rush into the work. Don't even rush into patience in the work. But really, if there's one thing to rush into knowledge. Seek knowledge before everything else. That is the most important part of all this. Hmm. Now I'll bring in Brother Seb, who's been quiet so far, if he has anything to add about this.
Thank you, Brother Faison. In truth, I do not have anything to add, but thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Maybe you'll have more here. But okay, so if we understand systems, we understand that we have to learn systems, that the work is done by positioning ourselves correctly in the system. We need to learn. You want to do real work, the huge, great work. Well, you're going to have to acquire some great knowledge. Hence what we are teaching. The theory of everything. And here it is. And there's another lecture series, I believe, on my channel entitled The Theory of Everything or The Oneness of Being. There's quite a few. Watch some of those and study them. And if you want to get really serious, read the book, which is on my website. Or just get in contact. And here we are. This is the system of everything. Very, very simplified. But study this. I'm going to speak it, but really listen and absorb. The first trap is going to be thinking that reality is complex. And so the great vision of everything should be extremely complex and be like a 50-page long mathematical equation, unifying all the great forces of reality. Well, let me offer you another picture. Reality is actually so simple that the unifying equation is more simple than you would believe. It's lost on us, it is a mystery, not because of how complex it is, but because of how simple it is. And I'll offer a follow-up comment. If it were not like that, there would be no such thing as mathematics. Because mathematics is not about complexity. Maybe physics is and engineering. Maths isn't. Mathematics is literally about pursuing that which is most simple. What is more simple than the number one? Yet that is all mathematics. Unity, and the structures of unity. Reality is this. All things begin in absolute oneness. That is the ground of being. That is the abysmal darkness, the irreducible, soundless deep, the seed of everything. From this one seed derives all of being and the manyness of things. That oneness is what we mean by God. When we say that God created the world, this is exactly what we mean. That God, the One, the principle of oneness, generated all multiplicity. And how does the One generate the many? Here is the most subtle part of it, which honestly may take a decade to truly comprehend. But the subtle part is this. The One creates by self-reflexivity. The One contains itself. because that there is no other thing but the one. When you really understand this, you will understand the entire world. When you can understand how the one is infinite, you will understand all of this. But this is where I'll add. Honestly, most people need a spiritual experience to understand this. Most people just won't get it. But maybe if they were given an experience, that could be by direct transmission of a spiritual master, can be directly by the grace of God. It can even be by biological intervention, like forms of extreme fasting, sensory deprivation, and potentially even something like DMT, some type of extreme state of consciousness. And this is not the whole picture, but inhabiting such a state might give a vantage point to understand reality. And from such a mystical experience, you might understand what the structure of reality is in terms of oneness, infinity, this infinite fractal spiraling out from oneness itself, and how everything is self-reflexivity, God knowing God, the one loving itself. But that is it. This is the great story of all being. One generation, manyness. So there is the foundation of the world, the Big Bang, the singularity. There is the generation of that singularity in conception and perception, in self-reflection. And that generation gives rise unto the forms of the world. This is the theory of the oneness of being. Hmm. And just before I move on, again, I'll ask Seb if he has any insights or even questions.
Thank you, Faizan. Hmm. Yes, just I feel it's my duty to help us always relate back to direct experience. So if you can, as you're listening to this, try to feel the sense of I amness, and then also try to see if you can perceive other. This is to create an experience of oneness. Just now, just you. You may not get anything right away. Give it a couple of goes in a couple of different states, perhaps throughout the day. But this one we are speaking about is not other to you. This is you. Do not forget this.
Hmm. Thank you, Seb, for this excellent insight. And in fact, I'll give you a quick 3-second meditation. Step one is going to be, and it might take more than 3 seconds, but do this again. Close the world out. Close your eyes. Go into your closet, physically and metaphysically speaking, and really just negate everything apart from yourself and come into the I am consciousness. And do this until you so strongly are not conscious of anything other than yourself. For even your breathing, it is I. I am breathing. I am conscious. The singularity of the I-ness is everything. Do this and try to do it quickly if you can, and then open your eyes. And immediately you're cast back into the world. And in this, there's like a small second, it's disorienting. But in that quick first second, when the experience that I am is still lingering, in that second, become conscious of the otherness of the world. I am, yet there is the other. And then keep doing this. Come back into the I am, Again, there's the other. And you can literally do this while you blink. There is no world, there is only I, there is the world. I, world. And if you keep doing this, something very amazing is going to occur between the I and the world. There is I, there is world. But between those two, something is going to occur. And I won't even tell you what it is, but try it for yourself. And you can literally do it while you blink with a bit of practice. And when they start to merge together a bit, you'll have some insights. But that is a quick meditation to actually explore this. Understanding this. So there is a system of being, and there is a system of nature. I mean, all of nature is a system and consists of many systems, systems inside of systems. And another exercise for you is to look for these systems. Can you find this? One, generation, many. I want you to go for a walk and try to find as many examples of this as you can. Look at the seed becoming the flower or the tree branching out into trunks, into branches, branches branching out into leaves. You see them in human systems, right? There's one prime minister or president branching out into many. Observe this differentiation of the one into many as much as you can, and really internalize the fact that being is a hierarchy, or another word of this is a holarchy, a hierarchy of wholes, that all of being is an infinite fractal containing itself, containing itself. It is an interconnected whole. Every part is connected to every other part, which is connected to the whole. That wherever you look, you see hierarchy. You see self-reflexive repetition, i.e. recursion. You see emanation of manyness from oneness. And you see the exponential growth of reality. What do I mean by that last point? Well, we spoke about the leveraging principle. When you have a work which is in alignment with a principle or with a system, the work is amplified through the system. What this means is that a tiny, tiny seed becomes, after generating, something much, much, much greater than itself. The number one becomes infinity. The seed becomes a huge oak tree. I want you to notice this exponential generation of reality, like compound interest or whatever it is. Generation is exponential, or procreation, right? You have two children, but each of those children have two children. What happens after 10 generations? It's not what you think. It's not 2 times 10, it's actually a ludicrous number. I want you to actually really see this in action. This is real, integrated, embodied systems level thinking, real embodied knowledge, where you are literally seeing this knowledge in action everywhere. Hmm. And lastly, to give some examples of this in action, let's take a look at the world of physics. Well, the entire cosmos is generated by that one infinitely small seed. We call it the Big Bang. It's literally a point. It's even smaller than the room right now. The Big Bang, the singularity, is a point. Imagine that. A point at the tip of your finger. That was where the universe began. And you have all of this now. How? Well, there is the Big Bang, the singularity, but it gave rise to the laws of nature, to the fundamental laws of physics, to mathematics, and this vast, huge, complex, elegant, beautiful, wondrous, self-reflexive generation of mathematics that gave rise into all the cosmos. And in psychology, there is similarly a principle, which is just an idea, an intention. And if you study this, you realize that an idea that you have is infinitely small. The first seed of a work is really a very infinitely small, subtle vision that you have. Before you have the vision as something you can see in the imagination, the vision of, a big house or whatever it is, a penthouse or starting a family or being the top of your career, before that, that wasn't where it began. It grew. But where this vision grew out from is actually a single idea, which is so singular it has no parts. It's literally a seed planted into you. And that grew through motivation, through desire, through your needs, through your inward psychological states. And what did that give rise to? It gave rise to you. Everything that you do, all of your works, your entire day and week and month and year, all of this, your entire life, is breathed forth from this one idea. Right? Someone had an idea of wanting to, climb the corporate ladder or earn a high wage, whatever it is. That determined the entire trajectory of their life. They went to university, they found a job, they went through internships, they moved jobs, they worked 9 to 5 or a 9 to 10, right? Their entire life. They did other things, but why? For the work, for the career, to move up, or whatever it is, right? Being an artist, being a sports person, starting a family. But do you see that you had an idea and your entire life is generated by this idea? This again is a system. It's a system where a single thing exponentially becomes many. Another two examples. Even mathematics, the principle is one. There is nothing but one, oneness. But then you can generate by adding. 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 2 is 4, and so on. There is only one number, yet that gives rise, generates all numbers. Not only does it generate all the infinitely many numbers, but all the infinitely many patterns between those numbers, and the infinitely many patterns between those patterns, and the infinite infinity of patterns, all from one. Or letters. All of language begins with letters. We have rules of grammar by how to put letters together. That's all, just a few letters, 24. And that gives rise into language, not just words, but sentences, intelligibility, complex communication to Shakespeare, to Milton, to the great works of literature, to the great works of poetry, even art, and movies, like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, all of these from letters. From letters. The Bible, right? The Quran, all of these coming out from letters and grammar. Can you see this exponential growth in action? Can you see how the one becomes the many? How this one principle subtends everything around us? And then can you see that understanding this system should be your utmost priority? And you need to understand then the system of yourself. How do you work? What are you? Understanding that, you can then leverage yourself, your system, to do the work and vastly amplify in output what was your input. Well, again, we have three divisions: principle, generation, structure. The principle is spirit, the ground of your consciousness, that one infinitely subtle seed from which you are grown out. That ground of consciousness, that black hole at the center of yourself. The breath of God, the divine spark in you, your indestructible essence, that gives rise unto everything. Everything that you are, that you say, that you do, that you think, it comes out of the seed. The generation of the seed is what we call the mind. The first thing, the first sparks which fulgurate from this holy darkness of the spirit are thoughts. Your consciousness, your mind, burns forth upon the oil of the spirit. This is the similitude of light. It's as if this point is rotating or spinning infinitely fast. And I think this is actually an example that Ramana Maharshi gave, that he described the mind as a disc. Imagine a disc, it's a flat circle, and you look at it and you're like, okay, wow, this is a circle, right? But what you don't see is that the circle is actually spinning infinitely fast. Right? Imagine you have a striped circle. If it's rotating like this, you say, wait, this circle is rotating. I can see the stripes going round and round. But if it keeps rotating faster and faster and faster and faster, you no longer see the stripes, they merge together. In fact, if it rotates so fast, you can no longer even see that it is rotating. This is actually a beautiful example. That is self-reflexivity. Yes, the spirit is still. God is a silence, but the silence of God is thunderous. Again, as Maulana Rumi said in one of his poems that when I am silent, you think I am silent, but I am thundering inside. What did he mean? He meant this. In his silence, he is with spirit. It is a silence, yes, but it is an infinitely energetic state of silence. The spirit is not inert. It is infinitely energetic. Yes, it is still, but it is infinitely tense. It is like a spring which is ever compressed, always recoiling. That is the mind. The mind is the arrow loosened from the bow of the spirit. Hence, a thought travels, a thought projects. It has velocity because it has been shot forth out of the spirit. So the mind is this generation. The mind is spinning, turning, rotating, oscillating, breathing. And the breath of the mind crystallizes. It literally hardens, freezes, congeals, and becomes this crystalline lattice that we call the body. Hence, the body and the mind are not two different things. Body is a dense form of mind, and mind is a subtle state of body. Body is equal to crystalline consciousness, and consciousness is subtle and energetic body. The body is the temple of consciousness. What is a crystal? A crystal is formed completely naturally. When there is a lot of pressure, it shapes the chemical molecules into this mathematical, crystalline, symmetrical arrangement. So it is completely natural. Under the laws of nature, it is formed. That is exactly the body. Under the pressure, the intense heat and energy of consciousness, the body is a crystalline product, a crystalline condensation. Hence why it is so innately structured and formed, because it is the mirror of the spirit. This is the system of yourself. And I just want you to understand that and really picture this. First, picture it very clearly, and then through our exercises, you'll start to embody it a bit more and more, and really see, like literally see how this works. Literally see how the spirit actually generates your mind, your body, your will, your emotion, your feelings, your day, your actions, your personality, your character, your memories, your childhood, your birth, your death, your parents, your children. Literally, step by step, you will come to understand, and we will go through the exact mechanics of how spirit generates all of these things. But I want you to have that vision in mind. I want you to see that and to be convinced. Understanding how reality works, that it is like this fountain, right? A tiny droplet of water condenses, flows down, pools inside this small basin. But now this basin is overflowing, and as it overflows, it pours down a bit more violently, with a bit more force, and trickles down, and then fills up the other central basin, and that again overflows, and now rushes down with more intensity, and it keeps flowing down and down and down. That is reality. That is the emanation of God, and that is the emanation of spirit. Hence, that man is created in the image of God. The spirit flows like this, and in layers it creates you. Your spiritual layer, your mental layer, and then your physical layer. But it is exactly like this. Understand this. See it in all things around you, both within and without. And understanding this, you will understand that the entire work is spirit. That spirit is the engine of the work. Spirit is the inner heart of the work. Everything that you are, everything that you do, everything that you will become is generated by the spirit. And so everything which you must do is in the spirit. And that is the Ennead. That is the Ennead. It is to begin with the spirit all the way at the top, and to systematically work down and map out every dimension of your life, spiritually, mentally, physically, continuing from physical to social, to the economic, to the cosmic, every aspect, dimension of your existence on planet Earth, and even in the next world. It's all contained and mapped out by the Ennead, because it is the map of God. It is not our map. We're not giving a theory to you. It's not a theory which I have come up with or Seb. These are the deepest truths of God. They are directly accessible in consciousness, in intuition. They are also contained in all of the great scriptures, which we'll go into at a later date. It's in the Bible, it is in Christianity, in Islam, in the Quran, it's in Taoism, it is in the Vedanta, in the Vedas. It's everywhere, this fundamental truth. And I've condensed it down into this tripartite scheme. Principle, generation, structure. Spirit, mind, body. The totality of this is what we call the soul. But if you want to understand this deeper, I would recommend watching the Unity of Becoming lecture series, which I've recorded now. And I won't hold any punches. It is very, very abstract and intense, as it must be. But if you are really serious about this work, I would encourage you to very seriously sit down and study the book and those lectures. And you'll understand exactly what I'm saying here about how the spirit generates everything in much more detail. Otherwise, we will explore the more practical dimensions of the work in this Ennead lecture series. And as always, if you would like to work directly with Seb and I, then please get in touch. And otherwise, we will see you in the next video.